The year is 1917, a year that would become a turning point in world history. The world is engulfed in the chaos of World War I. The Great War, as it was known, has already claimed millions of lives and shows no signs of abating. Russia, a vast and troubled empire, faces its own internal turmoil. The country is on the brink of collapse, struggling under the weight of war, economic hardship, and social unrest. Decades of simmering discontent, fueled by economic inequality and political oppression, reach a boiling point. The people are tired, hungry, and desperate for change. Tsar Nicholas II, the last of the Romanov dynasty, faces mounting pressure from all sides. His inability to address the needs of his people and the demands of the war effort has left him increasingly isolated. In February 1917, protests and strikes erupt in Petrograd, the Russian capital. The streets are filled with workers, soldiers, and ordinary citizens demanding change. Workers demand bread, peace, and an end to autocratic rule. The shortages of food and fuel have made daily life unbearable, and the people can no longer be silenced. The Tsar's authority crumbles as soldiers join the protesters. The military, once a pillar of the Tsar's power, now stands with the people, further weakening his grip on the nation. Nicholas II is forced to abdicate, ending centuries of Romanov rule. His departure marks the end of an era and the beginning of a new uncertain chapter for Russia. A provisional government, composed of liberals and moderate socialists, attempts to fill the power vacuum. They promise to bring stability and reform, but their efforts are met with skepticism and resistance. Meanwhile, a more radical faction, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, sees an opportunity. They believe that only a complete overthrow of the existing order can bring true change. They return from exile with a promise of peace, land, and bread. Their message resonates with the war-weary and impoverished masses, setting the stage for a dramatic and revolutionary shift in the course of Russian history. In the aftermath of the October Revolution, Russia plunges into civil war. The Bolsheviks, now calling themselves the Reds, face a formidable challenge in consolidating their power. To combat their enemies, the Reds formed the Red Army in 1918. Leon Trotsky emerges as the architect of this nascent army. Trotsky imposes strict discipline and builds a centralized command structure. The Red Army, initially outnumbered and outgunned, gradually transforms into a formidable fighting force. The Red Army's rise is met with fierce resistance from a disparate coalition of anti-Bolshevik forces known as the Whites. This coalition is not a single unified entity, but rather a collection of various groups with differing goals and ideologies. They are united by one common objective: to overthrow the Bolshevik regime and restore what they perceive as order and stability to Russia. This counter-revolutionary movement encompasses a wide range of political ideologies, united primarily by their opposition to Bolshevik rule. Among them are monarchists who wish to restore the Tsar, liberals seeking a democratic government, and even some socialists who oppose Lenin's version of socialism. The diversity within the White movement is both a strength and a weakness, providing a broad base of support but also leading to internal conflicts and lack of a unified vision. The White Army, a reflection of this fragmented opposition, lacks the Red Army's cohesion and centralized leadership. Their forces are spread across vast territories, making coordination difficult. Unlike the Red Army, which benefits from a clear command structure and ideological unity, the Whites struggle with internal divisions and conflicting strategies. Generals like Anton Denikin, Laver Kornilov, and Alexander Kolchak emerge as prominent figures, each with their own ambitions and strategies. Denikin, for instance, focuses on the southern front, while Kolchak operates in Siberia. Kornilov, known for his earlier failed coup against the provisional government, brings his own vision to the fight. These leaders, while influential, often find it challenging to unite their forces under a single command. Despite their internal struggles, the Whites enjoy significant advantages, including support from foreign powers. Countries like Britain, France, and the United States provide military aid, supplies, and even troops to assist the White cause. This foreign intervention is driven by a desire to prevent the spread of Bolshevism and protect their own geopolitical interests. However, their dependence on foreign powers also fuels accusations of being puppets of imperialist interests, undermining their support among the Russian populace. Many Russians view the Whites with suspicion, seeing them as tools of foreign governments rather than true patriots. This perception weakens the Whites' position and strengthens the Bolsheviks' narrative of defending Russia from foreign invaders and internal traitors. The complex dynamics of the Russian Civil War thus hinge not only on military battles, but also on the struggle for legitimacy and popular support. The Russian Civil War was not merely a clash of armies, it was a battle of ideologies. The Reds, led by the Bolsheviks, championed a radical vision of a socialist utopia. The Whites, on the other hand, represented a yearning for the past or a more moderate path to progress. This fundamental clash of ideologies played out on the battlefields and in the hearts and minds of the Russian people. The Reds' message of radical change resonated with many peasants and workers. The Whites struggled to unite a population weary of war and wary of foreign intervention. Early clashes testing the waters. As the Red Army consolidated its power, pockets of resistance began to emerge across Russia. In the south, Cossack forces loyal to the old regime rose up against the Bolsheviks. In the east, Admiral Alexander Kolchak emerged as a leading figure in the White movement. The Red Army, still in its infancy, faced numerous challenges in these early stages of the war. However, their commitment to the cause and their ability to adapt quickly proved to be crucial assets. One of the key factors in the Reds' early successes was their effective use of propaganda. The tide turns key battles and strategic shifts. The year 1919 would prove to be a turning point. General Anton Denikin launched a daring offensive towards Moscow. The Red Army, under the strategic guidance of Leon Trotsky, rallied their forces and launched a ferocious counter-offensive. The Battle of Tsarist proved to be a decisive turning point. Meanwhile, Admiral Kolchak's White forces faced mounting pressure from the Red Army. The Red Army's strategic use of cavalry disrupted supply lines and demoralized White forces. War's cruel grip, the human cost of conflict. The Russian Civil War inflicted unimaginable suffering on the Russian people. Famine stalked the land as agricultural production plummeted. Cities transformed into gaunt shadows of their former selves, teeming with refugees. Disease ravaged the weakened population. The war's brutality manifested in countless atrocities committed by both sides. The Red Terror saw the imprisonment, torture, and execution of thousands. The White forces also engaged in acts of brutality. Children caught in the crossfire endured unimaginable hardships. Foreign intervention adding fuel to the fire. The Russian Civil War became entangled in international relations. Foreign powers, motivated by geopolitical interests, intervened in the conflict. The Allied powers provided material and logistical support to the White forces. However, their intervention was often hesitant and poorly coordinated. The presence of foreign troops fueled nationalist sentiment among Russians. The Bolsheviks skillfully exploited this resentment, portraying themselves as defenders of Russia's sovereignty. Triumph of the Reds, consolidation of power. By 1921, the tide of the Russian Civil War had decisively turned in favor of the Red Army. The White armies crumbled under the relentless pressure of the Bolshevik forces. The Red Army's victory can be attributed to a combination of factors. Their unified command structure proved to be far more effective than the fragmented leadership of the White movement. The Reds' control of Russia's industrial heartland allowed them to outproduce their opponents. The Bolsheviks' effective propaganda machine resonated with a war-weary population. Legacy of a nation forged in blood. The Russian Civil War left an indelible mark on the Russian psyche. The Bolshevik victory ushered in the Soviet era, a period of unprecedented transformation. The Civil War had a profound impact on Russia's social fabric. The old order lay in ruins, and the Bolsheviks implemented radical policies. The nobility was stripped of its wealth and status. The Orthodox Church faced persecution and repression. The war's brutality created a climate of fear and suspicion. Yet, amidst the turmoil, a new society was being forged. The Russian Civil War gave birth to a new Russia, a nation forever marked by the conflict's enduring legacy. The world transformed global echoes of the Russian Civil War. The Russian Civil War, which raged from 1917 to 1923, was not just a conflict confined to the borders of Russia. It was a seismic event that sent ripples across the entire globe, altering the course of history in ways that are still felt today. The Russian Civil War sent shockwaves that reverberated across the globe. The fall of the Tsarist regime and the rise of the Bolsheviks under Lenin's leadership were events that captured the world's attention. Newspapers from New York to Tokyo reported on the unfolding drama, and people everywhere watched with bated breath. The Bolshevik victory inspired hope and fear in equal measure. For many, it was a beacon of hope, a sign that the working class could rise up and overthrow their oppressors. For others, it was a terrifying glimpse into a future where traditional power structures could be dismantled overnight. Communist parties sprang up across the globe. Inspired by the Bolsheviks, workers and intellectuals in Europe, Asia, and the Americas began to organize. They held rallies, formed parties, and dreamed of a world revolution that would sweep away the old order and usher in a new era of equality and justice. The specter of communism challenged the existing world order. In response, anti-communist movements also gained momentum. Political leaders and ordinary citizens alike took to the streets to protest against the spread of communist ideology, fearing the loss of their freedoms and way of life. The capitalist powers reacted with apprehension and hostility. Governments in the West, particularly in the United States and Western Europe, saw the rise of communism as a direct threat to their interests. They ramped up military preparations, launched propaganda campaigns, and sought to contain the spread of communist influence. The Red Scare gripped the United States. Fear of communist infiltration led to widespread paranoia and the persecution of suspected communists. Lives were ruined, careers destroyed, and the political landscape of the country was forever altered. The Russian Civil War contributed to the redrawing of the geopolitical map. The collapse of the Russian Empire and the subsequent rise of the Soviet Union led to significant changes in national borders and the balance of power in Europe and beyond. The Cold War can be traced back to the divisions sown during the Russian Civil War. The ideological battle between communism and capitalism that defined the latter half of the 20th century had its roots in the Russian Civil War, setting the stage for decades of tension and conflict. The Russian Civil War left an indelible mark on the 20th century. Leaders and movements around the world were influenced by the events in Russia, and the conflicts and alliances that shaped the century were often rooted in the ideological battles that began with the Russian Civil War. Its echoes can still be felt today, a reminder of the enduring power of ideas and the profound impact of revolution and civil strife. From modern protests to ongoing political debates, the legacy of the Russian Civil War continues to shape our world, reminding us of the transformative power of revolutionary movements and the lasting impact they can have on global history.